Welcome to episode 61 of the Rex Chapman Show with my super dope homeboy from the next town, Josh Hopkins, super sexy Josh Hopkins. What up, Josh?
What's happening, Rex? How's Brooklyn?
Brooklyn's great. How's Austin?
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yep, it's all good.
I know you were in Lexington recently to see your mom and to see my mom and dad. How were they?
They were good.
Yeah,
got to see all three of them. Man, your mom and you look so much alike, but you laugh alike. Your expressions are the same. It was fun to watch.
So you're saying she's hot?
Gets me up. I'm not saying that. No, whatever. It's fine. No, it was fun. It was good to see them, and it's nice of her. She's been visiting my mom a lot and going and talking to her. My mom can't leave the house much, so she's been so kind to her.
Love it. Something we like to do on this show from time to time is, as you know, we're both, as the people know, we're voracious readers. We like to have book club. Yep. Did you read anything this week for book club?
I did not. You?
No.
Oh, that's been book club. This is episode 61.
Yeah.
Do we got any 61ers?
61. I had to go.
That's a tough number.
Google machine. I had to go to Google because there's going to be no 61 basketball players. We got baseball, Chan Ho Park.
Okay.
And football, Nate Newton.
Okay, that's
Dallas
61. 61's tough.
Not a great.
I guess in sports though, if you're going to say 61, it's Roger Maris 61 home runs. So that's not his number, but
also
that's a famous 61.
Is that a thing anymore now that Judd broke it?
No more. Yeah, 62 is a cool number, I guess. For next episode, we'll have it.
I want to really drag out this open as long as I can because we're so damn entertaining. But we have a terrific guest that I'm really excited to get to today, Josh. You want to get right to him? Today, I am pleased to welcome co-captain of the Big Three's three-headed monsters, 9-year NBA vet, NBA all-rookie second team, two-time All-American and SEC Player of the Year. His number 35 has been retired by LSU. He's an author of In the Blink of an Eye. Welcome, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Welcome, bro.
Hey, man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
We were getting ready to do this. I wanted to save it all for when we got on here, but every time I see you, I think back, and Josh and I were talking earlier. I was at Kentucky, and I left school, would have been your freshman year, right? Yeah. At LSU. Yeah. And so you played 2 years of college, and then I watched you play and just tearing up our, Kentucky Wildcats here and there. Of course, watched you play, but the first time I saw you and met you was in Charlotte. You guys came to Charlotte. You're playing with Denver, high pick, and you were probably the youngest player in the league. I think I had just been the youngest player prior to that, and our team sucked, but y'all's team was really bad at that point. And I remember guys were just going at you, because, we're small and high draft picks and all that. And I just came up to you and gave you a hug right before the game, just said, hang in there, man, hang in there. So I'm just so happy to be here. Shoot, what are we, 30 years later almost? And it's good to talk to you, man.
And likewise, you know how they do in the league, man. They gonna pick at you.
That's right. Let's just start at the beginning. How did growing up in Gulfport, Mississippi, bring to light the number of injustices you felt were worth speaking to when you were in the NBA?
Oh wow, man. Mississippi, Gulfport is probably still considered one of the worst places, in the country. And a lot of times when you look at the statistics with education, whether it's what people are making in terms of wages, you name it, Mississippi is usually on the bottom.
Right.
And so just growing up, man, I mean, a lot of it really came from the relationship between blacks and whites, in terms of how I would see my parents and how I would see other people, almost like they would take this submissive, approach, a head down, surrendering type approach. But in private, they were certainly different people. But also growing up in mostly everywhere that there was a concentration of black people, they were the ghettos.
Yep.
And then you go over the track, the neighborhoods look totally different. And so you begin to see these things, but at the same time, not at that age, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's behind it. And you can't really put your finger on it and articulate it. But that's the first signs, just seeing it. Right.
Though you put that so beautifully, but, and I know I went through similar growing up in Kentucky, going from my neighborhood to where, I played AAU ball.
Yeah.
So I saw it from a different standpoint. Many of us just kind of sleepwalk through all of that. How were you so, curious, culturally at a young age where, those things stuck with you and became, a big part of who you are?
That's a great question. I don't know. I was just one of those children. I always found myself in circles with old people, men and women. And I would be that little boy that just sat there and listened a lot. But also I watched a lot of, at night, I would see a lot of, it's like almost every night, like midnight or so, these infomercials would come on. And it would show people just globally starving and things of this nature. And it almost always seemed to be Black or people of color, in those positions. And on top of me being in the environment that I'm in, it's hard not to, when you're in those, and I grew up in the church. I grew up in the church, and you hear things, talk about equality and brotherhood and all of these things, but the world seems different. And it just weighs on you. And I was just one of those children that I didn't always say anything, obviously, but it wasn't because I was thinking about it and I was saying these things, but it was, well, I'm just trying to figure this out. This doesn't seem right. Something ain't right about this picture here.
Did you take, it sounds like you were pretty conscientious about learning. Did you take your studies seriously from a young age? Did you not care? And how did that translate, from, high school to college and all of that stuff?
Man, great questions. Real quick. No, I didn't take them serious.
Okay.
At all.
I didn't either. Neither did Josh.
Yeah, welcome. You're amongst friends.
And this is why I think also, man, teachers are so important. And I know there's a classroom the classrooms are so huge, in many cases, and everybody learns differently. But the quality of a good teacher in terms of making whatever it is they're trying to teach you relatable, right? Interesting. And for me, no one could ever at the time, you grow up hearing you got to get a degree so you can get a good job. And school wasn't my thing. I think learning is everybody's thing. I think everybody wants to be informed, but how we're informed, I'm not a sit in the classroom. I'm more of a hands-on. I need to ask a question when I have it, but then you can't because you'll take away from other people. And so I just didn't flourish. And another part of that, Rex, is because I just never saw a future in academics. My mother, 8th grade education, mostly everybody I see in terms of my vision was so huge. And I'm like, well, everybody I see is in neighborhoods like this. They went to school, but the people that seem to have it are the actors, the entertainers.
Yeah.
I want what they have. And so that's what my vision was. I'm like, look, man, I'm putting all my marbles. I know you're not supposed to. I'm putting all my marbles in here, in this thing right here, this A option. I don't have no B or C. If I fail, I fail. Right. It was a major risk. And if it wasn't for, God blessing us,
Yeah.
I don't know, man, what in the world I would have done.
Before we move on out, because I know we're going to get to LSU and the NBA, but in your childhood now, I want to talk basketball for a second. How did I read that you were discovered on the playground at like lunch break or recess or something by a basketball coach? Like you weren't even playing on like the team or something. How old were you?
Did you have family that played at all?
No, not that I know of.
That's amazing.
No.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So like, how did you become such like a great, obviously you could shoot then and stuff. You weren't in the gym practicing, you weren't with a team. Did you were just out playing with your brothers and you learned to shoot, or were you always just, hand-eye gifted? What's the deal?
I made a decision because I flirted with different sports. I played a little football, ran a little track. I'm just playing stuff. You play what's in the streets. And we didn't get all the channels, obviously. We didn't have cable. So because we're close to the Hawks, all the teams that they played, we would see those games. I fell in love, man, with Dr. J. He was my role model because I saw the fish to save Pittsburgh. The
Pisces, baby. Yeah.
Moses Guthrie.
That's right. So I'm like, man, I said, and I just felt that I started to feel like, man, basketball is something. It was harder for me to get up for football. I was good at it, but it was harder. But basketball was something that, man, I love everything about it. And I felt that this was my only way. This was my only ticket. Like, if I don't make it in this, man, I don't know if my life is going to say for itself. And so I just prayed about it. And I started like literally at 10 years old during that time. I just made a decision that I'm going to wake up 4 o'clock in the morning. And I started, my mother she had to be at work at 5. So for years, she didn't know I was doing it. And I would wake up and it could be thunder and lightning, man. I'm not exaggerating. You would think the tornado's about to fall out the sky. I mean, it's pow. I mean, the rain is coming down. It's cold. I mean, we're poor. So, I mean, I didn't have those nice, thick warm-ups. I would go out with shorts and a T-shirt. And I'm dribbling, but you get warm as you go. And I came back home so many times with frostbitten hands. I'm talking about putting your hands in like hot. I didn't know you put your hand in hot water, it feels like needles. And so but I made the decision, like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to be the best in the world at this. And at that age of 9, 10 is when I made the decision, and I started waking up in every single day. And I would use my imagination. I would go and I would imagine 2, 3 people guarding me, getting my shot off. I would look at the NBA more than anything, and I would take photo images of what I would see, and I would go and try to make it my own and add to it. And I would do this day in and day out, use my imagination. Imagine I'm playing, to the point where I'm getting hit, going up. I mean, all of that, I'm like, wow. And then throughout the course of the day, later on, people would come out, and that's when you play against them. But you've already got, I don't know how many hours of training in by yourself. So that's where and how it developed.
Wow.
At what point in time, though? At what point in time? Because I'm not sure people really understand what a great athlete that you are and were as a young person. I mean,
that's a compliment.
Oh no! I mean, look, for your size, you could get to your spot and jump up over people. You could dunk it back in the day. You were explosive like that. And honestly, you were you and Kenny Anderson were kind of before your time a little bit. You were the first. We all thought about coming down and going between our legs and stuff, but that wasn't, coaches wouldn't let us do that. They wouldn't let us do that. Plus, shooting threes off the dribble. And that's just, I never got where I was great at doing that. When I saw you doing it in high school or in college, and I think, Josh, didn't they get beat by our Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena?
There was maybe his last year.
I don't know.
Game here now. Yeah.
But
I was there. I was there for it.
I just remember seeing you do this, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So do you remember the first time Dale Brown came to watch you play? Coach Brown?
I think the first time I was in Biloxi, we were playing Biloxi in Biloxi. I can't remember. I mean, I just remember that game. It was a good game, but I ended up getting a dunk. And I started jumping off two. I stopped jumping off one so much because I fell in love with Dominique.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you have so much more balance coming off two. But that game, I going full speed and I took off. Dude was right on my back. And you know, one of those dunks when you dunk and you keep on going.
Yeah.
I planted real well. Yeah, that was the first time he saw me. I think he came to a game to see me play.
Isn't that funny? I mean, all these years later, and I think back, you know, I'm thinking about myself, like the first time Bobby Crimmins saw me or Dean Smith or whoever it is, but that you can go back but talk about how that feels, because until that point, you know, we're relatively unknown, hoping to be like Dominique and Dr. J and all that stuff. And when a guy comes to watch you play that you know, the big time coach, and you kind of got off in front of him, that's a good feeling, right?
Great feeling. But really when I was in the 9th grade, because 9th grade at that time was still junior high. Now it's the beginning of high school. That's when I got actually my first letter, and it was from Louisville. You know, whoa.
That was my dream school.
Right. I'm looking at that. I don't know if Dale though was the first that came to see me, but I think that was somewhat a little later. But I was getting letters. I mean, I was getting letters in junior high, like interest, and but it's a great feeling, man. But it's overwhelming too, as you know.
It is. Yeah.
Because it becomes very difficult at some point to choose, because people are promising you, well, you're going to come and play. And I'm like, man, how can you? I don't even know what tomorrow's going to bring. None of us do. Not even next minute. How can you promise me something? And so I always felt funny about that.
Same.
You know, because other people could come in, but that's what made the difference with LSU. They didn't tell me that. Fess was there. They said, you'll be coming in. Fess is on the team. He was All-American.
Yep.
He said, look, if you have it, you have what it takes. And it wasn't arrogant. You have what it takes. And I looked at him, man, and that's the type of fairness, because I always hated this unhealthy favoritism. Just because a dude is old or senior. No, man, whoever can get it done. And when he said that, I got a sense, I said, you know what? There's a sense of fairness here. That, you know, and just look, one thing led to another, man. And then Fess ended up leaving. His dad, Dale told me, came to the office and said, look, we know Chris is coming at the time. Chris Jackson is coming to town. And we just want to make sure that if he comes, my son's still going to start. And the way he brought it to Dale, Dale didn't like that. And so Dale, he said to him, well, he said, and if he don't start, we're gonna pack our bags and go. Dale said, well, you might as well pack your bags and go. And so now I'm all there and I don't have nobody, so to speak, to compete against.
Yeah.
I'm going to compete. Let's do it. And after that first game, actually the second game, the first game was like 13. Second game was 21. Dale stopped me at the locker room. He said, listen, we need you to score more. I said, Coach, I'll try. And then that next game was 48. And just started going out like, wow.
Steph Curry's record-breaking three-pointer, Jason Tatum's buzzer-beating alley-oop, Ja Morant's poster dunk. NBA Top Shot is where the greatest moments from NBA history are turned into officially licensed digital collectibles. NBA Top Shot has evolved trading cards by making it easier to buy, sell, and collect by removing the hassle of grading, shoeboxes, and shipping fees. You can buy or sell moments in a few clicks and access them at any time on your phone or computer. Your collection is always at your fingertips. Start collecting Top Shot moments in any way you want. Collect rookie moments from future stars like Evan Mobley and Cade Cunningham. Collect throwback moments from former NBA stars like Shaq and Allen Iverson. Or collect moments from your favorite team to gain access to exclusive perks. Grab your starter pack today, and Top Shot will give you $20 back to start your collection and pick up some of your favorite moments in the marketplace. Go to about.nbatopshot.com/bballnews and get in the game today.
I mean, I remember going to the games. I'm a year younger than you.
Yeah, right.
And it was a sensation. What is this? How does he do this? We hadn't seen someone take over. It was a still very much an inside game and feed the post. And you had good post players. You know, and you would just pull in ways we'd be just couldn't understand it. And what I'm very much and was, especially growing up, like a people pleaser and very worried about everyone around and how they're doing, feeling. And if I missed 1 3-point shot, sorry, guys, sorry. And to watch you go out there, like you could miss 4 and then just, you didn't care, pull up in 5th one, and then you hit 10 in a row. And I just feel, what is his mind? You were always like that mentally. It sounds like it.
You know, man, playing, I would say growing up, waking up at 4 in, fighting the elements, pushing yourself, you know, because I also, when I train, even at that age, I'm not exaggerating one bit. Mostly every day was a near-death experience because I push myself hard, but I have Tourette syndrome. And so at the end of the work, even during the workout, but at the end of the workout, it's like, not like, Tourette's is saying, you're not finished yet. And now you're
wow,
breathing hard, you're tired. And Tourette's is saying, listen, you got to make 10 shots while you're tired. None of them can hit rim. They got to be in a row. None of them could hit rim. The move you're making prior to making that shot could have no glitches or don't count. So I can have 9 in a row. I mean, going full speed, just trying to finish it. And that 10th one could skim the rim and go in. I can't retake that 10 shot and say 10. I got to start at 0. That may take another hour and a half. And so I've had literally, I couldn't catch my breath on almost every day. And then finally it'll come out, tears coming down your face. You're like, man, like you felt you was gonna die. And so when you do this day in and day out, it's like something in you, it's like, man, I'm not about to put myself through this type of abuse, almost killing myself, and get on the basketball court and just lay down.
Yeah.
It's gonna be do or die, life or death, make or break, whatever. That's the way it's gonna be.
But during that time,
yep,
you didn't know, there was no name for it. You didn't know there was you weren't diagnosed with Tourette's. You weren't diagnosed until you were like 17. What did you think everyone felt that way? Did you know something? And how did it present? Did you do any ticking or anything like that?
Oh man, yeah, it started off with blackouts. I would be sitting up whether watching TV and you would think I was asleep, but I wasn't. My mother got on me numerous occasions. I was boxing this dude named Benny once. We were in the yard boxing. And you know when you get out of it, what just happened. But you don't always know what happened. And I went into a blackout. They said Benny, man, cocked back and right in my face. And I just did this because I knew when when I woke up after he hit me, he was like this. I went into a blackout. And we just started.
How old were you when this first started?
I was probably at that age, 7th grade, somewhere around there.
Wow.
Yep. And so I still, you know, the ticks, the picking up stuff, the putting on your clothes, taking them off, putting them on. It take about 45 minutes just to get out the house every day before I go
Was this every day? All through
every single look, even now at 53, once my eyes open, I got to give myself a motivational to, all right, new day. All right, it's going to be a smoother day. You're not going to, you're going to control it better. It's you constantly having to motivate yourself and psych yourself up to be as calm, but it always fails.
Wow.
Some days are better than others, but man, this was every single day. Not only before you left, on the way to the court. If I'm dribbling, I got about 4 blocks. If I'm doing a move, it don't feel right. And if I mess up about 3 times, if I'm headed in this direction, if I mess up about 3 times, I got to back up 10 steps where I came from. And I got to do it. Then I got to do whatever with my right. I got to do it with my left. That may take 40, 30 minutes to get to the court. I get to the court. Now it's on the court. It got so bad. I had to start. I said, man, if I keep, because I would do that 10, I would work out an hour and a half. Then Tourette would say, you got to make these 10 shots full speed. If not, you got to make them before you leave. I would literally do that drill. The one that almost killed me. I'm walking off the basketball court. It doesn't feel right. I mess up a few times. I got to back up and do that same thing twice. Numerous days. So I said I had to develop a strategy. So once I would finish it, I would take the ball and I would sling it towards my house. And so finally, when I get the ball, I'm so far from the court, if I'm dribbling and mess up, at least I don't have to shoot it and go through that drill again. It says every day.
Wow.
There had to be, I would take basketball away from it. You're in class, you're in class and you're a young guy in class. How were fellow classmates and whatnot about that stuff?
I think what helped, I got it occasionally. I got it mostly when it was girls that they liked, that they thought they liked me. Mm-hmm. But because I'm a people's person, mm-hmm. I love people and I'm always trying to be respectful and all of that. I got it, and now I'm an athlete. Yeah. And so I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
and so a lot of times, PE classes. Yeah. So you like, okay, there's a target on you. I mean, I'm coming at you. I don't say it, but you try to humiliate
right.
me.
Yeah.
So I got it, but being in class, Rex, is like I tell people, man, having Tourette's and I was too busy trying to stay still.
Suffocating, right?
The teacher was saying, because I'm too busy instead of doing mm-hmm. Making all those noise and doing this, I'm trying to be normal. And so you're holding that in. So while you're trying to hold it in, you can't really focus. Yeah. And so your education suffers as a result. And I'm just amazed that I was still able to be, not that I wasn't interested in trying to be no A student. I was just interested in doing enough to play. So if they say a C is what you have to have, I'm just trying to do just enough.
At some point, did either you or someone else suggest medication? And how did that go? And how does it go? I don't know.
Beautiful question. My mother took me to the hospital, doctor, a couple of times, and the doctor told me, literally, this was his diagnosis. And he's still there in Gulfport. He said, you have habits. They come and they go. And he gave me these huge pills, man. I call them horse pills or whatever. They were like orange and with gel in the inside. And I think now that I'm old, I think it was just a placebo.
Really?
Just
wow.
something to make me.
That's interesting.
And they would make me gag. I would throw them into the cinder blocks because part of the house wasn't finished. And I would throw them in to give my mother the impression I was taking them, but they were gagging me, man, making me gag. And then she took me to the hospital. They put EKGs in my head with this white paste. And they told me to stay for like 24 hours. But nobody was able to, outside of that, it wasn't until Miss Lil Jenkins, the head coach's wife, who was a nurse by trade, they just kept seeing this day in and day out. And so she asked me, is it okay to ask my mother? I said, sure. And then that's when they took me to a doctor, not Jankovic, that's in Houston. I can't remember his name, but in Mississippi. And as soon as I got into his office, he said, do you know what you have? I said, no. He said, you have Tourette syndrome. And that's the first time I got a name for it, 17 years old.
one of my best friends, Dash Myhawk, he's an actor also. He has Tourette's. And so we were roommates for several years. So I know a lot about it and seeing his tics and the things he has to do over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to talk about it because it makes it brings it. But like, yeah, I'd have to watch him. We'd be watching a movie and he'd be like, hey, hop, look at me. And he'd have to do his things. And if I looked away, he had to do it again.
Yeah.
I knew to keep looking at him because I would just waste more time not being able to see the movie if I didn't just look at him. Because if I looked away at all, no.
It's gonna make it worse.
Yeah.
You gotta get that response.
Yeah.
You still may do it a little bit more.
And so like going to movies, he has to sit in the back row because if he's above anybody, the people behind him are always like, what's wrong? What are you doing? Like he's ticking and stuff. So I can't imagine how great it felt to have a name put to it instead of you're just crazy or you just stop doing that. Quit doing it. And so to have how great did that feel? Man,
it took a figuratively speaking, man, it took it was a huge weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Now I can go around instead of saying, well, they're just habits. They come and they go. And if I see, I'm having to give like a dissertation on what it is, I can just look, man, it's Tourette syndrome. It's hereditary. And meaning I got it from somebody. It's not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it took away. And then to know too that, because I had never seen, the first time I saw somebody, I believe, with Tourette syndrome was when I was at LSU and I was doing this commercial for the Tourette Syndrome Association. And they showed me examples of people with it. So all of this time, Mississippi traveling, so you sort of think, darn, I mean, I know I'm not the only one, but you look at it, how rare, this must be a very, very rare thing, and you question when you're younger. I was always taught not to question God, but you question sometimes like, okay, what is this? What am I supposed to get out of this? What is it supposed to do for me?
Yeah.
And it's taxing though, man. And it's like from the moment you wake up until the moment you're out cold, not from the moment you lay down. Because even when you lay down, you're on the pillow, it don't feel right. You doing this until it just knocks you out. It's constant.
That's so interesting because, you always wonder about these things as we evolve as a species. Lots of times the reason that we evolve, that these things survive, there's some reason that they are still there. So it's so interesting. You had to deal with this on a daily basis and you wouldn't wish it on anyone, but there's no doubt that it helped you be great. There's no doubt that's one of the reasons you made it and as great as you were and are. Yeah.
Without it, this is the phrase I normally use that I ended up coming up with some years ago. Because I'm constantly asked, would you not have it if you could? I said, man, that's enticing.
Yeah.
I said, but I've seen how also it's benefited me in so many. And I believe that God doesn't give us a burden we can't bear. Wow. And I said, man, I don't know if I was always taught to be respectful and stuff, but when you have something that's so open and overt, you can't afford to jank because they can get you quick, right. So I don't know if I'd be the person that I became. And then to having stuff like this, it makes you a little bit more sympathetic and empathetic to people that's going through things, right? Because you know what it feels like, whether it's poverty, whether it's, a medical condition and, or living without, growing up without a father, all those things. And I wouldn't be the basketball player because I wanted to leave after an hour and a half. Yeah. It would make me stay another hour and a half or 3 hours, depending on if I got jammed up doing that twice. And I definitely wouldn't have been that basketball player. And I would say that Tourette's has made me, right? When this, I said, no, I'd keep it, because Tourette's has pushed me where I myself would not have gone without it.
Amazing. Did you always enjoy reading as much as you enjoyed basketball, or did that come later on?
That came, the joy of reading came later. Now I would read, but it was mostly like, man, I read a book that had Dr. J's story in it.
Right.
I ended up writing, had like it ended up being 24 pages, and I would carry that notebook around the school with me, and I'd peek at it and just look at his story, man, and use that for motivation. Wow. Being in the dentist's office, the National Geographic magazine, stuff like that fascinated me. But no, the love of reading came like around the LSU, right after LSU. Dale Brown gave me the autobiography of Malcolm. And I said, man, I love the way he uses analogies, and his mind. And then from there, I just started, definitely once I became a Muslim, I had to read the Quran. That was the first book I ever finished in total, because I didn't know it was, I thought it was obligatory during the month of Ramadan, but it wasn't. So I'm reading it during the season. I'm falling asleep. I mean, it was, but when I got through, I said, wow, I finished a book. And then I started to notice I could engage in conversations a little bit better about different things. And I'm meeting people and they're having conversations. I'm taking it in, and then they're introducing me to books because they made the conversation so enticing. Man, where you getting that from? Like, I wish the teachers could have.
Right.
Like, man, get what? Then they'll give it to me, or they'll tell me, I'll go get it. I said, wow. And so a whole nother world opened up. And that's when it started.
Coach Brown's amazing. Even he was always great to me when I was, playing against his teams. And then when I got in trouble 8-9 years ago, got out of jail, got out of rehab, all of that. My dad called me and said, hey, Rex, Coach Brown reached out and he wants to talk to you. Can I give him your number? I said, of course. He gets on the phone with me. He talked for an hour. Had me crying, just talking about how, hey, this is going to pass. And then he would send me motivational things daily, right? But what a good dude. And I just wonder how much of that, do you still have a good relationship with Coach Brown?
Yeah, man. I don't talk, you know what? I'm not on the phone a lot.
Right.
So even people that's close that know me, they say, man, look, man, you just got to know Mahmoud. But they know if they call me, it's like we never skipped a beat.
Right.
So Dale, Coach Brown and I like that. He calls me more and sends stuff. I mean, I got people that's like, I know I'm gonna have to call about 40 times, but they know me. So yeah, but no, look, man, if he wouldn't have given me that book, and not just the book, but Dale had a way throughout the course of the year, like you said, he still sends. He's old school. He still sends envelopes through the mail.
Yeah.
As well as emails. But man, he would always give us nuggets. You'd be on the plane. He'd say, hey, he'd be reading sometimes 2 books, 3 books. He'd say, hey, check this out. Tell me what you think about that quote. Tell me what you think about. And you'll be reading. He was always passing you stuff. Yeah. So that stuff, it carries over. You don't know how important that is, but that was a part of that process.
Well, that's because you were ahead of your time. I'm sure you've written, I've read it a lot. Like, you were Steph Curry before Steph Curry. No. You had that range and pull up and then you got into the NBA and your perspective changed in your mind after you started really reading. Mm-hmm. And then you were Kaepernick before Kaepernick, which I know you've heard 1,000 times. Tell me about that time when you decided you weren't going to stand for the anthem.
It was roughly 4 to 6 months the previous season. And it came as a result of just, like you said, reading, just being informed. And almost every city I went to, especially after I became a Muslim, people they just come to the hotel. And I'm like I said, I'm a people's person. I'm inviting. If you made me feel like, if I felt comfortable with you, after the game, they come up to the room. I order room service. And so it became a tradition. It's like I was having class every time on the road.
Wow.
When I went on the road, and it would be different people with different disciplines. Some be great in history, some political science, some religion, some. And so we just sit up talking all night, and I'm just consuming. They telling me, so, whoa. And with all the books that they're introducing, the Noam Chomsky's, the Gore Vidal's, the Randall Robbins, I mean, I'm just lit. I'm like, wow. And now I'm thinking about how I grew up. I'm thinking about, hold on, it seems like this is systemic. Something behind this. This ain't just happenstance, no. So, of course, because I was always taught, man, to pray for others more than you pray for yourself. There's a saying that if the goal in life is to find your gift, the purpose is to give it away. Or if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. I was always taught that regardless of color. But I've said, man, it seems like we living in a society, though, that highlights and, this black and white and want to just keep, It's like a system behind this hatred. And so I hate it. I hate injustice, man, because I know what it feels like. I know what that feels. I know what it feels like sometimes to feel invisible, right? To feel less than. And so I'm reading all of this stuff, man. I'm just like, man, and then I was that child that were taught just to play the game. Don't say anything because you can lose your job. You can this. And I'm like, man, And the people that I'm reading, I'm like, oh, they're doing it. And these are the people we tend to admire when they're dead and gone. Right. And I'm like, man, I want some of what they have. They seem like they walk with a freedom that I've never felt. Like, say what they want to say, whatever the consequence. They have such confidence. They feel so free that, look, man, we all gonna die. None of us gonna make it out of here alive. What do you want your life to say for itself? Do you want to live regretting, or do you want to live standing for something? So I'm processing this stuff day in and day out. Nobody knows it. I'm still going to the gym. I'm playing. But I'm like, man, it's bothering me. And I just, at that point, I said, you know what? And I'm looking at the symbol and I'm like, there's a lot that they're not telling. There's a lot that's happening. And so that's when I began to and for different groups of people, we look at it differently, based upon your experience. If you don't have the type of experience I have, you're going to see it differently, oftentimes. And so many Black people, let's say, will look at that and say, oh, no. Or other people of color, Native Americans, right, might look at it differently. And so I started associating those symbols and then with my religion in terms of unhealthy nationalism, toxic nationalism, right? I said, yeah, I can't do it. And that's what brought that on. And I've been that way. I noticed too that I've been that way since I've been a child. I've always detested bullies. I've detested when people were mistreated. I don't care who you are. And I said, man, I got to go out swinging. I said, I want to live and die with a free conscience and a free soul, whether people like it or not. I know it's not going to be easy. I have to get used to saying no. I have to get used to, because I was that child would just sit back, didn't want to say anything. I said, I gotta break free from that. I gotta break free, and that's how it happened.
It takes a lot of courage as a young person, but Josh and I had the privilege of, growing up in a state where we were able to watch Cassius Clay. But what we realized too, I'm 55 now, Josh is 50. What are you, 51? Two. But we also grew up in a state where a lot of those people didn't like him. Yeah. And if I heard it once, I heard it 30 times as a kid. I liked Cassius Clay. I don't like Muhammad Ali so much. Mm-hmm. And it took wrapping our heads around that to really understand what was being said. And it didn't dawn on me until probably I was a late teenager that no, they just didn't like that he was telling them things. Yeah. He was saying things out loud that people didn't say or weren't supposed to say. This podcast is brought to you by Branded Bills, the best place online for premium headwear and apparel. Branded Bills has hundreds of designs available, including our popular state collection, where you can show your pride with hats, shirts, hoodies, and more, for all 50 states. Are you a company looking to brand your business? Branded Bills also offers custom apparel options that can meet your brand standards with fast turnaround and shipping. To shop or learn more, visit brandedbills.com today.
Often when my life is mentioned, of course, basketball is a part of that. And like when we just talked about all the struggles of getting there, not just wrestling with poverty and being in a single parent. And so many people share that, right? Share some of those things. But also just the struggles with Tourette syndrome, right? And we're living in a time now, it seems like never before in history, even with the youth, there's so many people, whether it's mental illness of some type, the suicide rates are so high. People are suffering. So sometimes if you can, stories are powerful. It's like a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? And so if you can tell a story, you don't know who's out there that's dealing with things, that's going through something similar. And I know it's cliche, but I definitely want to deal with those things, but also just the evolution, in terms of, I really feel that in so many ways we're miseducated and misinformed. The system does that. We're taught to memorize and in so many ways, not necessarily learn, mm-hmm. right? And just the damage that does. Like some of the stuff, you can't put everything in a book because time constraints, but like when I found out 2.5 hours up the street in Natchez, Mississippi, about this guy named Abdul-Rahman, who was enslaved. He ended up marrying a Christian woman years later when he was set free, years and years later, and went back to Timbuktu. Well, the guy who enslaved him was friends with his father, didn't even know he had his son. And the father was a king in Timbuktu. But it made me look at Timbuktu at that time. And I'm like, and they had like universities before the West even conceived of universities. And then the number one commodity was books, like valued knowledge that, and then I'm looking and they had paved roads, but we're taught African. And so I'm like, man, if I would have had access to some of this information, I would have thought more highly of myself. I would have thought I could be more than a basketball player. So the damage that does, because even we didn't talk, even when I was at LSU, Rex, a lot of people don't know when I was breaking they put me in a remedial reading class at LSU. I could read well, I could spell, but my comprehension skills were terrible. I wasn't taught to think, to be critical.
Right.
And I remember they gave me, I was so humiliated. They put me, right before they even assigned me classes, they took me into this room and they had me reading. I'm reading. And said, what does this word mean? I read it so smooth, like, you would have thought if you wouldn't have questioned me, oh man, exactly. I said, I don't know. They asked me another, well, what does this word mean? I don't know. And the more they kept asking me, man, I'm like, I start feeling humiliated.
Yeah.
Man. God, and then they said, well, what is the story telling you? I don't know. I was just reading, sounding good. And then they put me in that class. But I remember the Florida game. I had 53. Coach Carson comes in there, shake me. I go out to do my interview. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm like, you would think I should be at my highest moment.
Your self-confidence.
Like I'm embracing, like I'm about to make it. But instead, my mind goes to, this is happening too fast, too good to be true. Mm-hmm. Something bad is going to happen. And the older I got, I started saying, wow, this is where it's coming from. The things you consume, in terms of whether it's television, whether it's literature, the stories you consume affects you. And I said, what were you watching? And I used to watch Sanford & Son and Good Time religiously. Yeah. But every time I'm rooting for them to make it out the ghetto. But every time it seemed like they were about to make it, something would happen to kick them right back in. So that was me. It's like, oh, so my mind was telling me, yeah, you doing this now. But most of y'all, right? The statistics, most of y'all never make it. You're going to most likely end up just like JJ on Good Times or just like Sanford and right back in the ghetto. And I never could truly embrace it. So those type of things along with others, you know, the Tourette's, the struggles with all of that, the evolution, being misinformed, navigating through all of that, of course, what led to the anthem, you know, my feelings, just those type of things I'm trying to bring out with the help, obviously, of Nick Childs.
It was such a serious topic, so I couldn't do it. But when you said I was watching, you know, Sanford and Son and Good Times, and they almost get out, I was like, just like Gilligan on the eye.
That was a classic. We watched him do, and they
never got up the island. So close. Did your, after the NBA, which was undoubtedly cut short because of your stance in that way, but then you went on to play in so many countries, Russia and Saudi Arabia, Italy, Japan. Did that change your perspective on the United States at all, or just your worldview at all?
It stayed steady, and it hasn't changed in terms of, I still feel the same way. And even when I made the statement, I'm not saying that, you know, and the media can be very crafty. I said, am I saying everything in America is bad? No, there's good that exists. I said, but wherever the bad is, as a Muslim, even if it's in Saudi Arabia, I said, we don't stand for it. And so I've always held that position. I don't discriminate. You know what I mean? I mean, look, Saudi Arabia is a dictatorship, very oppressive, imperialistic, you know, and I feel the same about America, you know, so I'm not one of those, oh, just because you black or just because you Muslim. No, if you do wrong, if it's something that I don't agree with, I don't agree with it. I don't care. I'm to the point now, man, and I know there are issues everywhere in the world, but I've grown so attracted when I travel overseas and I see how but a lot of countries, how they live. There's always trade-offs, but like here, it's like almost every corner you turn, it seems like they're taking something. And I look at some of these countries, I'm like, some of them don't have property taxes, right? Even something like that. Like you have people that they've been working all of their life and they come up on bad times and they can't pay 3 years of their taxes and their house is taken. That shouldn't exist. Yeah. And then I look at healthcare, right? Over 40 million or more people can't afford healthcare, don't even have it, right? And then some people that do, they got to make tough choices like, I might not be able to pay my mortgage. But we're supposed to be so exceptional with all this wealth. And you got some third world countries, you got places that provide that, even education, right? Taken care of. You know, I'm looking at all this, I'm like, man, literally, I've been contemplating, and I'm like I'm no longer married. So then it was like a little hiccup because, you know, you want your family to be on board. But I'm at the point, I'm trying to move yesterday to go and live somewhere where you're going to always have issues. But I'll take my, you know, I'd rather be in a place, man. I found when I travel overseas a lot, there's not this sense of keeping up with the Joneses. People seem to be pretty, not that they're not striving, but if they're in a place, they're content, they're grateful, right? And it's just so much about the air in a lot of these countries that I enjoy compared to here. Even foods, right? There's so many things that aren't allowed in the foods there that they're constantly putting here that's killing folks.
We could do a whole other hour on clean water in Jackson, Mississippi. And, you know,
yeah, they say they're like 2,000 water systems on the level or worse than Flint and Jackson that they're not even talking about.
Walking around countries, you know, traveling and being like, coming out, there's no one out here. It's the middle of the day. Oh, they're all taking a siesta. They're all asleep. I'm like, what? Yeah, that's the life they've built with that culture. I'm like, everyone's asleep? Holy shit.
They get long lunch hours.
Yeah.
Hours for their family. Like spend time, they're not rushing 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Stuff, you know, I got to be back at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, man, you have so many, and that's another thing people don't, and I know we can go off, but this is this like exceptionalist view that's been exposed by so many now. It's like, hold on, man, you got whites, you got a lot of people. They're not telling you, oh, people want to come to this country, but they don't tell you the amount of people, even Americans, that are leaving at the same time. Yeah. And sometimes that number is greater. Mm-hmm. So this is the story, but so many people are, disenchanted, disenthused or whatever about being here, whites and blacks. Yeah. I'm constantly on television, on YouTube, and I'm looking at expats overseas. Right. Talking about, I had to leave. I'm like, wow. And once you experience it, it's like, man, if I got enough, now your money goes a longer way there.
But it's vital. And, you've had the luxury, Josh has had the luxury, he's an actor. I've had the luxury of traveling. And look, it doesn't even have to be, I wish everyone could travel out of the country. I wish. But growing up where we did, I didn't fly on an airplane until I went on a visit to a school. I didn't have money. We didn't have money to do that. I never saw an NBA game until I played in one. Most people don't travel outside of, 50 miles from where they were born. So, traveling and seeing what's actually out here. I'm sure for you, first time I came to New York, I'm like, what is this place? How do people live here?
They knew you were an obvious tourist as soon as you stepped.
Yeah.
You gave it away.
All right, Mahmoud, what's your favorite book, favorite movie?
Oh man, you can never ask me that because I don't have favorites. I love so much about life, man. Okay. It's hard to choose.
All right, give me three. Can you give me three?
You know what? I'm partial to. There's a movie about the Prophet Muhammad called The Message, man. And I like a lot of stuff based on the truth. Okay. So The Message, man, I love Braveheart. Man, something about that movie, man, made me want to get up, man, and go fight every time I see it. Movies like that, man. I'm trying to be across the board. I have to.
We'll take those. From you.
What about if you could sit front row center to see anyone play or speak or anything, a play, again, front row center, dead or alive?
I want to go back, man. I'm going off the Richter scale on this. You were like, man, you really went deep. I want to go back and see so many things, but I want to go back and see, not even hear or whatever. I want to go back and see, man, how Adam and Eve was created.
That's big. That's front row center. Yeah.
Front row center.
Yeah.
I want to see that,
yeah. I'd be interested to know, and you can't pick favorites, I get it, but you talk about enlightenment and reading and all these things. What if a kid's turning 18 right now and wants to, here's a new perspective for you. You've grown up here. What book or two, that you might give to them and tell them to read?
I'm always suggest the Holy Quran. I'm always suggest. Okay. I don't care who it is. Outside of that, me personally, you already know. They say speak to the level of a person's intelligence. So I think also in order for me, depends on the person I'm talking to. I'd want to get to know like where they lean toward, like whether, because when you talk to them, whether their struggles are, what they like, because I'd want to get something that appeals to that first.
Right.
And then you can build off that, as opposed to just something random they might not even have interest in. All right. That's how I do it. Yeah.
Great.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This is amazing. Please,
you guys were great, man.
Oh, you are.
Like literally, y'all were look, and I don't use words lightly. And I know you getting ready to sign off, but man, y'all chemistry, how y'all feed off each other, the questions, the timing, man, this was the best.
Oh, that's the greatest. Look, I have to say this then. I was intimidated coming into this by you. Your perception's very serious. Everyone knows your stances. even your demeanor on the court was pretty serious. You weren't a smiley guy on the court. And then I had read in preparation that, like, especially like in Denver, you were out with the community, very approachable. People liked you, and it counteracted what people thought, on the court in the community. And it's been such a pleasure as soon as we got on here and you were smiling, I was like, he smiles, So this has been so great. I hope so many people see this. They get to know you that they never thought existed. This got to be the biggest misconception about you.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to say this. I had it written down. I'm not just making it up. That says sexiest game I'd ever seen was watching him play at LSU. It got sexier in the NBA, and as a person, absolutely sexy. Just a beautiful, worldly, beautiful person. I can't thank you enough for doing this, Mahmoud.
Man, thank y'all, man. I appreciate it. Much success always, man.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I have to go. All right.
Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Josh, once again, between two turds. Successful.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, what have I done with my life? What have
I kept wanting to say, he was speaking and he started talking about, whatever city he was in, and he'd meet with whoever to learn more. And all I could think about is there are several guys right now who are playing in the NBA who have podcasts, and how valuable a young Chris Jackson / Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, how valuable a perspective it would have been for him to be able to share his experiences, be able to share the whole national anthem thing and the Tourette's thing and where he's coming from. And it's kind of tough to think about in that he couldn't do that, but it's beautiful that he wants to do it now.
Yep, right? Absolutely. Just the intellectual curiosity he had his entire life, and what reading did for him. We're not exactly huge literacy advocates on the show. I don't know if, you know and wow, what that did to unlock his mind. I really did want to know what book he would have said. Like, if he's turning 18.
Yeah.
This book would be a good starter place. But he's smart too. There's not one book. It's dependent upon the person.
You said it though, the curiosity, and it reminds me of something our guy John Calipari says, is that the things that normally separate good and great players are their curiosity on the basketball court and their ability and willingness to improvise in the moment, be dribbling down and all of a sudden throw it 3 feet over the goal to a teammate can go get it. Some guys might not throw that pass because it might go out of bounds and they might come out of the game. Guys like Chris Jackson, Mahmoud don't care, that curiosity, and in the moment he's that intellectually curious is even more fascinating, right?
What a great conversation. What a great dude.
Yeah. We should just never talk. We should just have people on and have them talk for the whole hour.
We'll do the start and we'll just and it'll come on and it'll be the Rex Chapman Show, and we'll just
and they let them talk.
Yes, and the guest comes on and they talk and we go.
We just kind of sit there and nod, and haw.
Yeah. Right, and then they go off and we go.
That was him.
That was great, man. That was great.
Right, buddy. I enjoyed it. Let's do it again next week. Want to?
I sure would.
We'll be back again for the Rex Chapman Show with my super dope homeboy from the Lextown, Josh Hopkins, powered by basketballnews.com.